Hello, good afternoon. Very warm welcome to everyone here in the auditorium and, of course, everyone following at home. You are invited to come a bit closer if you would like during this breakout session, so you don't have to stay up in the auditorium in the back there. There are still some cheap seats in the front for those who are willing. At this moment, there are 4 breakout sessions taking place under the theme Building Technological Leadership and Strategic Autonomy. And during this session, we will focus on AI. So we are very happy that you are here this afternoon.
Yes, AI is indeed high on the agenda, and this technology is increasingly impacting our lives, our economy, and of course also our society. And the EU aims to take the lead in human-centric AI by investing in research, development, and the implementation of trustworthy AI, all within the framework of a unique legal framework, the AI Regulation or the AI Act.
Yeah, so it's a high time to take a look at that AI Act. We will talk about the EU AI policy regarding research via the Horizon Europe. We will talk about the deployment of AI in the economy and society, and also the world's first horizontal AI legislation, of course, the AI Act itself.
Indeed, during this session, we will seek recommendations to better align these 3 pillars. And to achieve this, we will first listen to the keynote of Cécile Huet. Following that, Riyad and I will have a panel discussion with interesting panelists, and then it will be your turn, because we are very curious about your questions and your remarks.
Good, but first we will listen to Cécile Huet. She's head of unit for robots and AI innovation and excellence at DG Connect. She's responsible for financing and supporting the development of AI in Europe within the Commission, and therefore she is excellently positioned to provide an overview of EU AI policy and how the European Commission aims to improve AI policy in the future. So please welcome Cécile Huet.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here with you today. So in this very short presentation, because there is a lot of content about AI policy, I'll try to go to the essential, also in the context of this event, from also research to reality, and try to bring the different elements from the policy we have, and with a focus on research, innovation, and deployment, and try to establish the link also with the AI Act. Would you have... Yes, here. Okay. Yeah. So the basis we built on is the coordinated plan on AI, where we have agreed with the member states to work together. Already we started in 2018 to join our effort and see what we can do together to really have an AI which is made in Europe, an AI which is human-centric and trustworthy. So the people-centric approach is very important, and we want to make sure that AI we want to have developed and deployed in Europe is in line with our value as well. So this was the basic of all our development, and then we have created a policy starting from the trust. We have the AI Act to set the right guidelines for that, and then we have the ecosystem of excellence, because we need to build these tools, we need to build this application, therefore we need very strong research to make it happen, and also to support the deployment in a way as well. We need to master this technology to be able to deploy it in a way which is human-centric as well. So I will try in this presentation to go through the different tools, the elements we have from basic research to deployment, and see how we link it to the different aspects and requirements from the AI Act. So in a nutshell, the AI Act is risk-based approach, so the higher the risk, the more constraint you have. And for many applications, there is no specific constraint, but when there is a risk, you need to make sure that the AI system respects some conditions and some requirements. And they are, for instance, accuracy, robustness, security, safety, transparency. And these are the the important aspect that can be, that must be addressed as well from the technology point of view. Which kind of instrument do we have to bring the technology from the lab to the market, bringing from Horizon also to digital? We start with the PPP. We have a partnership with the community to define a strategy on AI, data, and robotics. And the goal is really to have a European strategy, and we use this strategy to lead also our programming and our decision regarding the priority we give in our programs. And this partnership, ADRA, if you're not yet a member of it, I would strongly encourage you to become a member. And we have committed to invest 2.6 billion together with the community in this important strategy to implement in Europe an AI which is human-centric and trustworthy. Out of that collaboration, we have done a number of calls, out of which we fund projects. So we have research and innovation projects in the context of Horizon Europe, and many of the topics are focusing on having an AI which is more robust, more transparent, accurate, explainable, safe, fair and secure. So these are the keywords we have which are central to our program, and they are directly linked to what we need to have in the AI solution we have in Europe. So the research is there to make the system addressing those issues. We have a number of networks of excellence. These are very, very strategic projects. They bring the best researchers in Europe to join forces and progress on these different aspects of AI to make them also more human-centric and more adapted to our needs. So this is also another tool we have to progress and build a very strong research community in Europe on those topics. Then a key element is the AI on-demand platform. It is quite central because it bridges between the different stakeholders, both from the research, from the innovation, and the bridge between the two of those communities. The goal is to have a single access point to trustworthy resources. So again, the link to the AI Act, we want to have their resources which people can trust. Therefore, it needs to be also implemented in a way which is linked to the AI Act. So the key element, under the Horizon Europe program, this brings the project, we ask every project to put their resource on the platform, make them available, reusable. The goal is not to reinvent the wheel each time, but to reuse existing assets, build a knowledge base, a community around this AI on-demand platform, which is there to serve progress in AI. On the side of the Digital Europe program, it's more business-oriented. It's just started now, and the goal is also to transfer from research to innovation, but also to bridge the gap between those two communities, and because the industry and the SME startup and investor can also bring requirement, provide feedback to researcher, provide use case to drive research, and real-world data also to pull research. So you see a lot of synergies, and this is a key element to bridge between Horizon and digital research to deployment. And then we have, under Digital Europe program, the testing and experimentation facilities, and there, this is really a key element to complement what we were doing in our research program in the past. We need to really test these AI tools in real-world conditions before really deploying them. And that's so important because you cannot risk to use a system which is not fully tested before deploying it in an hospital, for instance. So these testing experimentation facilities, they are in 4 sectors, and they test different aspects, including the one related to the AI Act. So again, the link to the AI Act, and they will host as well regulatory sandbox to play with the tools in a safe environment. We invested 220 million euro, co-funded 50% by Digital Europe program in 4 key sectors: manufacturing, healthcare, agri-food, and smart cities and community. And the goal is really to test this solution, help the startup to test their solution in realistic conditions, and also to validate them against the AI Act requirements. Finally, the last mile before delivery, the European Digital Innovation Hub, they are very key because they bring the tools to the end users, to the local economies. And they will also host regulatory sandboxes. And basically, they are more localized, regional-based. They are linked to their ecosystem from research to investor to users. And they're linked among themselves to create a strong networks, but they will benefit from the other tools I mentioned before, which are more centralized tools, which must be available to any users in Europe. So finally, we also need to link to standardization, and there are a number of actions which are foreseen in the Digital Europe program to support the innovators in making sure that their tool is in compliance with the AI Act. And the last element I wanted to mention is the AI package, which is 2 weeks old, and it's a package for the AI startup and innovation, and the goal is to really create a strong infrastructure to offer the key elements for all AI innovators in Europe, provide them with computing resources, with data, with algorithm and skills, and make sure that AI can flourish in Europe. So we have put forward a 4 billion euro investment for that and for the support to development of generative AI foundation models and their deployment in key sectors in Europe. I will not go into the detail. Now, explaining a bit how we go from research to innovation, we will launch in the coming months, weeks and months, different calls related to generative AI, so linked to the package I just introduced. So from basic research, we want to create the condition to have a very strong community in Europe from building very strong next-generation AI multimodal models, but also address issues like explainable and robust AI. We know that generative AI sometimes does not work as expected, so we need to reinforce that research. Then in Digital Europe program, we want to really support a multilingual model available for all the European innovators and covering all the European languages. So that's one part. The other part is a multi-country project dealing with language technology, again addressing all the languages, collecting data, and building application based on that. Finally, going to the last part on the innovators, we also have an EIC accelerator to support startups and SMEs that in their growing phase, again, those ones focusing on generative AI. And finally, we launch a Large AI Grant Challenge. It's a prize offering, again, prize money and compute access to startup, and the deadline is coming soon. Thank you. That was a quick overview of our activities in generative AI and AI.
Thank you very much, Cécile. Vous pouvez prendre votre place. Thank you. Global European AI leadership through research, deployment, and regulation. 3 sides of the same coin. Well, it's the title of our panel discussion, and may I already invite all the other panelists, and then we will introduce them to you. Please give them a round of applause.
Yeah, we will do the panel with Cécile Huet, of course. She doesn't need an introduction anymore, I guess. We just gave her one, so that's Cécile Huet.
And then we have Steven Lattre, Vice President of R&D, Machine Learning and AI at IMEC. And additionally, you also are a professor at the University of Antwerp. And ladies and gentlemen, every good debate needs a professor as a guest, so we have covered that already.
We also have Sebastian Hallensleben, if I pronounce it correctly. Very well. He leads European AI standards and trusted information at CENELEC and STAND ICT. Is correct? Okay. He also advises the German government and EU on AI. Okay, I pass with flying colors.
And with Frederik Heinz, we have a second professor Wow, good. At Linköping University, I hope I pronounce it right.
Linköping.
Yeah, okay, you told me so, sorry. You teach computer science, and additionally you also are Vice President of AI Research at ADRA, like Cecile already told us, and you are a member of the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Science. Good, welcome everybody. Riyad, you will start.
With a warm-up question, just not too difficult, could you maybe introduce your main activities around AI? Who wants to go first?
Sebastian.
Don't be shy.
I can go first, and since you've already mentioned it, the main activity relevant to this event is probably the development of standards to go with the AI Act. You might be aware that the AI Act is a fairly horizontal and high-level piece of regulation that, for example, specifies transparency as a requirement for AI systems in certain circumstances, but it doesn't really say what transparency is, how to measure it, how to achieve it. And this is actually what will be specified in harmonized standards, so they underpin the AI Act, and I've got the pleasure of leading the committee that creates those standards. The clock is ticking. We need to have them ready within the next 2 years so that they can be used by companies as their path for a straightforward adoption and implementation.
Okay, we will talk about the AI Act later on. Maybe Frederik, what are your main activities?
Yes, so I'm involved in several different things. Of course, we have ADRA, the AI Data and Robotics Association, which is the private part of the public-private partnership together with the Commission. So there we're very much pushing the research in AI, data, and robotics. So there I've been leading the work on developing our strategic research, innovation, and deployment agendas. But I also coordinate one of these networks of excellence called Taylor, where we are developing the scientific foundations for trustworthy AI. And we do that through the integration of techniques coming from learning, optimization, and reasoning. So we believe that you need to combine different AI methods to get these systems that we want. And finally, I also coordinate a project called Trust LLM, where we're building trustworthy large language models, also funded by the Horizon program.
Okay.
We'll just finish the...
Yep, perfect. So I work for IMEC, a non-profit research organization which is focusing on semiconductors and digital technologies. I'm responsible for AI there. So this means, on the one hand, that we're looking at really the intersection of AI and hardware. So how do we build new type of chip technology to build really the AI of the future? But we also focus on several different application domains as well, from mobility, energy, and so on. Specifically related to Europe, I'm part of one of the TEFs sitcom on mobility in that part. But we're also working on European digital innovation hubs as well, so also very broad, collaborating with Europe.
Okay. Cecile, you want to add something? Yes.
Yeah, maybe in a summary, what we do in our unit, we don't do everything which I presented, that's only part of it. But I would say we try to optimize our support to research and innovation, somehow paying for the glue in bringing the different elements, building on what's already funded at national level by industry and so on, and bring it to European level so that we can make a difference rather than making the sum of the individual elements. We want to have a more multiplying effect and exponential effect if we can.
Okay, thank you. Now it's a question for the men here, because we just heard the talk, the presentation of Cecile. Maybe a first reaction on her talk. Sebastian, do you want to start, or Frederik?
Well, even though I work a lot on the European stage and standardization, in interactions with the Commission, it's always useful to see how the various elements build on each other and connect with each other. And it's also good to see that as far as AI is concerned, we're not in a situation where policy making is delayed with some lag behind the cutting edge of technology, but in this case, it is actually hand in hand with the cutting edge of technology. I think there's also even though you didn't explicitly use the word, but there's an undercurrent of that notion of European sovereignty, of thinking, well, can we really survive and exist without a European LLM? Well, the answer is no, we can't, but do we just run after what American companies are doing? Do we try to chart our own European path? What does it look like? So it was very good to see all this coming together and in a consistent picture. So it was actually quite useful for me as well.
Okay.
Yes, and of course, we are very happy to see this progress. And I think because one of the challenge, or maybe two of the challenges these days is scale and speed. That, I mean, in order to be competitive and to really push the scientific frontier in this area, one has to be able to do large-scale innovation and research and deployment, but we also need to do it fast. So I think it's very positive that we see this trying to, redirect efforts to be able to support this. So that, I think, is very good. Because in the end, I think if we want to have the technology that we want with the values that we cherish in Europe and so on, the best way is to actually build it ourselves. And I really think that that's our best chance to get the technology that is trustworthy, is to build it, of course, in collaboration with others, but we need to have the capability and the capacity to build our own technology.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with that. I think it's a very nice overview showing that really going from research to really practical applications, the Commission is doing a lot in this. That's, I think, absolutely needed. I think if you look at the history of AI, we've really seen that it came a little bit outside of the research closet to some extent. 5, 6 years ago, I think a lot of this was still a lot of innovation purely at the scientific level. I think we're still doing that, obviously, as well, but it's really important to bridge that gap towards the application as well, and I think we're doing a lot in this in the last few years. But I also agree with the previous statement that European sovereignty is going to be key in going forward. There's a lot of investments happening right now. Is that enough to really concentrate and make sure that we can take the lead in these, well, more ethical values of AI? I think that's still a very important question for the future.
Okay, but the challenges are we need to scale it up and we need to be faster.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to tap in on some of the things that have already been mentioned. If we talk about the future of AI here in Europe, let's say in the coming decade, especially regarding the balance we have between innovation and regulation. We talked about this morning. Some criticism is always Europe is very fast at regulating stuff, a bit slower when it comes to innovating, especially when we look at the United States and stuff like that. How do you look at that? We are talking about an AI Act, so we are already regulating a lot. Are we innovative enough?
I would actually challenge the narrative that regulation and innovation in AI oppose each other, and then it's somehow a zero-sum game. More regulation means less innovation and vice versa. If we look at what innovation actually means, pick your favorite dictionary or your favorite language model and ask it for the definition of innovation, and you usually get two elements. One, well, you create something that is new, that is novel, but you also create something that is useful, that has value, be it commercial value, be it societal value. And if you then step aside and consider, well, what is actually responsible AI, you think about things like understanding AI, understanding what's actually happening in those models. You think about, of course, recognizing and mitigating risks. And if you consider, well, what do we need? What characteristics of AI systems do we need to look at to implement responsible AI? It's things like quality, safety, security, good governance, accuracy, and so on. If you consider what do we need to produce AI innovation that's beneficial, you think about quality, otherwise you can't sell it for a good price. You think about safety, you think about security, about accuracy. So really, if you drill down from either innovation or responsibility, you end up with pretty much the same characteristics of AI systems. And so we can have our cake and eat it in this case. That's the message I would get across.
Yeah. So Cécile, innovating and regulating are not opposites?
No, it's also a innovation-friendly regulation. It's not regulating in the dark, it's regulating when it's needed. You know, people will not refuse to have rules when you have an autonomous driving, for instance, an autonomous car. You want to make sure that the car is not going to kill your children. So people would understand those rules. Now, when it comes to human rights, it's less physical, so you need to maybe better understand and explain, but we want also that people can trust this technology. When you use it to hire someone, you want to make sure that the system is fair and your life will not be, you know, you will not be affected negatively by those. So we need to have sufficient guardrail to make sure that people using it, but also people developing it can sell it to their customer in a way where everyone trusts the technology and is comfortable with it and serve a purpose, meet a need, and not just forcing a technology for the sake of forcing a technology, but make it in a way which is the way we want it in Europe.
First, Steven.
Yeah, I would actually go even a step further. I think regulation could actually also be a catalyst in some cases to really drive innovation as well. Because the reason behind this is that it provides some clear design choices that as a region we make. We say very clearly we go for this type of AI, we do not go for that type of AI. And given the size of Europe, I think it's important that we make these choices, and it also allows us then to force, quote unquote, companies to really go into that part as well, because there's a new business model behind it. To make it more clear, I think the GDPR, for example, did that very clearly. There were very clear regulations on data. But as a result, we've also seen big tech companies such as Apple made a business model out of privacy suddenly. And suddenly you see that because of regulation, some specific choices are being made as well. And I think that's could be one of the values of this AI Act going forward.
You wanted to add something?
Yes, because I mean, in some sense, I think to me this is very much an empirical question. What will happen? Of course, we in Europe want to push this technology, but it will be up to what will the rest of the world do in response to this. And I mean, will we see a delay that it will be delayed to come to the European market? Will it take 3-6 months before they put their products onto the European market? That is something we will have to see. But I think in the end, what's really the key here, I don't think either that there is a collision between innovation and regulation, but rather we also have to innovate, or we have to invest as much in innovation as we invest in regulation. And if we get both, and if we get them to work together, pushing in the same direction, that's when we get the real interesting results.
Okay. Now let's talk about human-centric AI. How would you assess the progress of the EU in becoming a global leader in human-centric AI?
Yes, I think this is probably one of the areas where we really have had a global impact. I mean, if you go, let me take, for example, the US. I mean, go back 5 years, they didn't talk about this human-centered AI. They didn't talk about trustworthy AI. Today, they are also having the same kind of language, the same kind of terms as we are using. They're talking about trustworthy AI. They're talking about human-centered AI. So I think we do have global impact there.
Okay, Cécile.
Yeah, and in our project, we also gradually move towards that, and it is really at the core of every single call we have, every single project we have. You're leading one, which is also at the core of being human-centric and serving the human and developing the technology around the human and addressing all those different aspects, like also bias. We have one part of our program analyzing what does it mean, a biased system, how can we first understand if it's biased or not, and then address it. So what are the kind of approach we can use to make sure that the system is controlled in that way as well. So, and in terms of having a system which is more trustworthy, we also saw an evolution of having also very multidisciplinary projects. So you have also the users involved in the development of the project. You have also different scientific disciplines to also make sure that we also understand the human needs. Social science and humanities are very often very at the core of the research. They work together with the engineers and the developers. So that's very important to take all these aspects into account when we develop. But we also see an evolution in our project in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Now, how do the AI implementation initiatives of Digital Europe in general, and I think the testing and experimentation spaces in particular, how do they bridge the gap between research and the market?
Yeah, that's the reason why they are there, because, and I would say the Digital Europe program was created also because in the past, in the research and innovation project programs, we saw a lot of super interesting prototypes, demos, and so on. But then at the end of the project, very often they were not exploited. So what we are doing with such projects like the testing experimentation facility, we allow them to see which kind of those results can be brought to the next phase and be tested not only in a lab, but bring them to the end users and understand how this system, their prototype they have developed, can actually solve a real problem and how they work once they're faced in a real situation. When you have a robot in the lab, it can work very nicely. When you bring it to a hospital, that's a different question. So, you need really to have also the professionals, like in the hospital, the real user who knows what is really useful for them. That feature is very nice, but actually I did not use it. But this one is really the added value for me. So these are the things which need to really be tested, and in terms of trust, you need to build this trust with the end users as well. So they have to make it work in the real environment and say, okay, it's failing that much, and I cannot trust it. Or it's failing, but it gives me a probability of the result. So then I understand how it works. But for that, you really need to bring those developers together with the user. And it's at a point where we had sufficient number of prototype innovation to make it happen. So we really look forward to see how many prototypes will be then tested and brought to the next level of maturity and closer to market.
I saw several of you nodding, so Steven, Frederik.
Yeah, I can maybe give a bit of an example of that. I think this is extremely important indeed. I think what ChatGPT for me showed is absolutely it's great technology, but what it also showed for me is that suddenly AI became really, really tangible. Everybody is using this, and it's the theory of large language models suddenly got translated to everyday use for all of us. But I think there's a vast, wide range of AI research which does not get there yet, which is probably equally important as well. And I think there it's where the TEFs really play a very important role. I'll give a very concrete example. We're participating in a project called Sitcom, where the focus is on mobility, AI, and robotics in general. We're developing here a mobility hub in Belgium. There's a lot you can do on AI research on the mobility front, on making sure that we get to this multimodal shift. But the main challenges are actually access to data. There's all these AI models that you can develop, and there's a lot of scientific papers that you can get. But it's the data that is extremely important, and making sure that that data is privacy aware, that we can also open up that data to who is interested in that. That is not something you can do tomorrow in a lab, but where you really need to have a project like a TEF to be able to do this. And only then you can get AI innovators to really work on these data and models together as well.
And I think there's also a specialization for Europe in there. We will never be competitive in the world market if we try to emulate OpenAI, or if we try to emulate Meta and just ingest everything that's out there, regardless of copyright, regardless of personal data, and we just do and kind of hope for the best. We won't compete with those organizations, but we can compete if we consider, well, what are the strengths in Europe? And the regulatory framework we have for data protection is a strength in this case. It forces us to innovate towards AI that works with smaller amounts of data, that works with data that is quality controlled in a very different way. And this will also help us to put AI into safety-critical environments, Because if there is a safety incident that needs to be avoided using AI, we cannot let that oil refinery explode 1,000 times to collect the training data, and then the 1,001st time the AI is kind of smart enough to give us an early warning. We need to work with data-sparse AI, and this is something that we can do in Europe in a better way because we're forced to, and we have that tradition of working with small amounts of data.
Okay, thank you, Sebastian. Now I would like to delve deeper into AI research through Horizon Europe, and especially its connection with the EU AI policy. And Sebastian, you already mentioned it, the AI Act. From a research perspective, how well aligned are the AI objectives of Horizon Europe with the overarching goals of the AI Act?
Yeah.
Cecilia, yeah.
Actually, that's why I tried very quickly to mention in the presentation, to try really to, when you see in the regulation the requirements for high-risk application, so you need to have a system which is accurate enough, which is robust enough, which is safe and secure. So these aspects need to be addressed from a regulatory point of view, from a standardization point of view, but you need the technology which is accurate enough. And our goal in all our program is to push the boundary of having systems which are more and more robust, more and more accurate, secure, and for that you need a lot of research. I mean, we are progressing, but we are not yet there. No one is there, and this is why we should not. You know, it's not like a shift. It's like we will still need to continue doing research for many, many years because you need to still improve this system and meet the requirement of the users. So this is very important to continue to do very good research. One of the aspects in particular now to generative AI and this large language model and so on, you see, I mean, they have incredible results, and we're all amazed by them. But sometimes they completely fail, and I mean, in a way which you would not realize if you're not questioning the system. So this hallucination, you need to address them, and you need to find scientifically how to address them.
But are researchers aware of these requirements? Maybe the two professors here. Who are doing research.
From what we see, definitely they are really, really aware. And I think this is a characteristic from, you know, from the evolution as well, I think, of engineering. I saw over the year that it's becoming much more multidisciplinary, even in the academic teaching and curricula. It's much broader than just engineering, for instance. And we see that in the community, they are very well aware of the situation, but
the academic world is here,
so
do you agree, Frederick and Steve?
Yes, I agree, and I actually think this is probably another strength of Europe, that we are quite good at working together, both collaboratively between different disciplines and also across different countries and so on, which of course increases the diversity and increases the likelihood of being able to cater for a broad range of users and so on. So yes, I think we are well aligned.
Yeah, I can also agree with that, absolutely. And I think it's another example of how regulation is also, again, providing a catalyst for the type of research and the type of innovation that we're doing in this context as well. But at the same time, also provides enough freedom to do the innovation itself as well. I think the regulatory sandboxes that are in there that allow you to go a little bit step beyond what is really possible today and still do enough innovation and have enough freedom for that. Also really on really actual locations, I think that's very important. So I think there's absolutely an alignment there.
Okay. Let's talk about Horizon Europe, because what are specific examples of AI research under Horizon Europe that can accelerate technological compliance with the AI Act?
So I can give an example because, as I said, I'm coordinating this project called Trust LM, where we want to build more factual and trustworthy large language models. And just as was mentioned here, I mean, what we try to do is actually both push the state of the art for the whole chain from data collection to pre-training to fine-tuning to retrieval augmented generation to evaluation and so on. So actually having control over the whole pipeline, because I think the challenge here is that if you take in one component that you don't understand how it has been created, it's difficult to verify what the properties really are. But if you understand all the steps in the process, then you will have a much better chance of actually building this more factual and trustworthy, for example, large language models.
Okay.
And it might also be worth highlighting the New Generation AI Demand Platform that started, or the project to build it started last month. I'm involved in the trustworthiness work package, so we're leading the effort to make sure that all the components and all the tools and all the frameworks that come onto the AI on Demand platform are actually trustworthy. And that includes considering, well, what does trustworthiness actually mean in this context, which will, of course, be guided by the AI Act as a starting point. And if that should leave any question open, there's still the high-level expert group report to go back to. There's the OECD work to go back to. And I actually see one of the very, very positive developments in the past 2 or 3 years has been the really, really close alignment between the policy making in the Commission and in Parliament, the European AI standardization. We see a lot of integration, a very, very close collaboration with the European Commission. We talk almost on a weekly basis to make sure that we have good harmonized standards. And also the very tight conversations between the European Union and the OECD. It's not a matter of course at all that the AI Act uses exactly the same AI definition as the OECD. There's a lot of work that has gone on behind the scenes to make that happen, and the same goes towards the Council of Europe as well.
And do you also see that connection between policy and research? What can be your role in it, for example?
Yeah, I mean, there is a connection between policy and research. I can comment from a standardization perspective. There's the STAND ICT program. There is also the Horizon Booster, and they are designed to make sure that research that happens in the Horizon program manages to transfer its results into standardization and also to assist researchers who normally might not consider going into a standardization committee to do so and have the funding to do so.
Okay, good.
Okay, if I listen to everyone is happy, and Europe is doing a great job in regulating, and we are being very innovative, which is very nice. But still, I wanna try. Steven, is there nothing that we can do better when we talk about Europe, artificial intelligence? If we compare ourselves to what's happening in the East, in the West of this continent?
Well, I think there's a lot we can do better. I think that's very.
Okay. Oh, you have a few minutes. Go ahead.
So I think it's clear. I mean, we can talk a lot about trustworthy and responsible AI, and I think it's absolutely important, and we're setting a standard there. But at the same time, we also see that the bigger technology players of AI are not here. I think we need to be honest about that as well. And at the same time, we already talked a little bit about European sovereignty here. I think this is a challenge going forward, that the evolution of AI in the last few years have been that large technology players are doing both the research, both the deployment and the production of all these AI systems all at the same time.
And the ethics.
And the and indeed, in doing the ethics, like a bit on the side there as well. And I think that's, for me, as a researcher, also the fundamental choice that we need to make going forward on AI, and as a region for sure as well. Is this something that we want to allow going forward? I don't think so, to be honest. I think it's something that we need to make sure that we as Europe take more grip on this as well. And there are solutions to this, but of course this is going to require courage and investments at the same time. So I think there's a need for me to build a kind of facility, whatever that facility might be, that maybe corresponds to a little bit like what Europe did when we had the CERN research facility. We invested a lot into a single entity, making sure that we can advance the state-of-the-art on Large Hadron Colliders back then, and that provided us an unbelievable cutting edge going forward. I think it's a choice that we need to make of, do we want to do this as well on AI or not? I think based on the fact that I'm saying this, I think my personal belief is that we should do this, obviously. But I think it's a really important choice. I think AI is a system technology. It's at the same level as the internet, as electricity for me. And how it's going to be open or closed, this is going to, well, the next 2 or 3 years are going to define that, I think, and the choices that we make as a region.
Yeah, I can follow up. So, I personally also support the CERN for AI, because I think that the challenge here is, again, as I said in the beginning, scale and speed. And I really think that have been our challenge the whole time. We are doing very high quality work, but we're slightly kind of behind, or one step behind. And what we see now is that the kind of companies are starting to build their solution on today's technology, because they cannot wait until, well, in some sense, the proper technology that we are developing is ready, and they need to make their investments now. And I think that is, of course, a challenge. So we need to be even faster, but we also need to be able to do it at a scale. I mean, if you're looking at OpenAI and this Meta was also mentioned and so on, what they can do is they can do things at a really, really large scale. And since they're one organization, they can be fast because they can just make the decision and implement it. So I really think that is the key challenges for Europe, is to how do we increase our speed and how do we scale up to be able to do even larger things.
I also think we don't need to be too negative about our strengths either. We already talked about the fact that trustworthiness, responsible AI is so important. It's not only large language models which are important. There's a lot of smaller data, smaller edge AI systems where there's a very vibrant ecosystem here in Europe as well. There's a lot of research on hardware and AI as well. If we combine all of that, I think we do have the potential to reach that scale and that bigger potential as well for AI, and to really be that leading region in the future.
But when you talk about speed, isn't there a risk that, for instance, when you talk about the AI Act, the revolution in AI goes so fast that your AI Act may be already outdated and it cannot catch up the speed of the innovation?
I don't think that's necessarily a problem, because the AI Act very wisely mostly regulates the application of the technology, and that was one of the really, really big fundamental decisions that the Commission already got right in their first draft. My worry is a different one. My worry is that we are under the illusion that every challenge, every problem, every risk with AI can be handled by the optimum regulation or the optimum innovation policy of AI. And that's simply not true. And particularly, it's not true for the impact of generative AI. So we've had technologies kicking around since 2018 with deep fakes that makes it possible to fake everything, but also fake everyone, to create humans that don't really exist and to do so at scale. And this is something that is not new. I mean, ChatGPT made it known to everyone, but the technology has been around for the past 5 or 6 years. And we will not address this challenge of generative AI just by trying to regulate AI or by having AI policy. We need a much more fundamental and a broader look at how trust works in the digital space. How do I decide whether to trust someone? Is that person a human being? Is that person honest to me? Is that person showing good judgment in what they share from elsewhere? We do not have the mechanisms and the tools yet to track, to understand those individual trust relationships. And we also are missing another key ingredient, although we're on the way there. If I want to build trust, I need to know who I'm dealing with. I don't need to know the real name. I don't want to know the real name. We do want that privacy layer, but I need to be sure it's a real person, and that I can recognize that person from one day to the next. And so what we're missing is, on top of the European Digital ID, which is fortunately coming, we need a layer of pseudonymous IDs, of multiple digital identities that are bot-proof. So I think these are things that we need to look at to address some of the challenges posed by AI, rather than thinking, oh, what else can we regulate, or what other policy do we need?
Yeah, so I think, to be honest, I think legislation will always be lagging behind to some extent in an AI world which is evolving at such a fast pace. I think that this is normal. AI is moving so fast that legislation will always take its time for that. But that's, for me, another reason not to go for that legislation. It provides very clear design choices, very clear guidelines and certainty as well on how you could deploy AI going forward. And then that catch-up will come in the future as well.
And
I would say that, I mean, my worry is not that regulation will be too far behind, but rather that people think that regulation will not take away so that they don't think themselves.
Yeah.
I think that is my worry, that people, oh, well, now we have legislation, now I can just use whatever, and it will be safe. And I think we have to realize that we as individuals have to also have a responsibility in how we use it to be critical towards the technology. And I mean, when it comes to this large language model, my general recommendation to people is don't trust it, but you can still use it if you're critical and aware of what you use it for, that you verify the output and so on. Then it can be extremely useful.
And I think that's that's a very important one, because at IMEC we're doing a yearly study called the Digimeter, which is doing a kind of assessment every year of how citizens are looking at technology and how technology is being adopted. Now, what we see in these yearly studies, and these are the studies of last year, is that 1 out of 2 people are saying that technological advancements are going at a much too fast pace for them to still have the right type of confidence for them to move forward. I'm pretty sure that after a year of ChatGPT, that 1 out of 2 is not going to go into the positive direction in the future. So it's that digital divide is just increasing and increasing right now. And legislation will not solve that at all. It's important for us to really be too aware of what it can do, but definitely also what it cannot do going forward.
Yeah, okay.
One addition, maybe a different angle, what we need to do more is to make sure we have very good skills, but we have to make sure that we are capable of keeping them, or when they go abroad, they're able to bring them back, because we have so good skills in Europe, but we need to provide them with the right environment so that we can attract them as well. It's not only money, it's also the right infrastructure, the right tool so that they can really enjoy developing AI in Europe, and but that's important as well, and to work together, and so that there is a vibrant community, and they feel that okay, there is something happening in Europe, and we want to be part of it. So that's one element to make Europe also attractive for talents. And
you all have a very clear vision about regulation and responsibility. When we are talking about the AI Act, the framework of it. You are part of the AI community. Is the act the framework of it? Is it what the AI community in the EU had hoped for?
I see some doubts.
I mean, that's impossible to answer, because there is not the AI community. I would say that the long process of developing the AI Act, starting with a high-level expert group in 2018, that came up with both the ways to address risks, which have now led to the AI Act, but also with ways to promote innovation. That was a very good start. As I said earlier, the initial draft of the Commission was very, very spot on, and the fact that most of that initial draft survives into the final act, I think speaks for itself after so many political negotiations. So there are always details that people don't like, and different people don't like different details. But overall, I think it's actually a pretty solid piece of legislation, and I wouldn't be able to pinpoint any alternative universe in which the AI Act looks different, and yet a compromise has been reached.
Okay, that's very clear.
And maybe to finish up, Steven mentioned the big players are not here. Cécile, is that something that we should envy, that we need big players to come here in the future?
We don't necessarily have to have exactly the same model. We have really, we have some startups which are really promising. We have a research community which is very strong. But what we need to do is to speed up and then to put the right means so that we can reach the speed and the scale that we want in Europe. So we put these measures on board. We have all the ingredients in Europe. Now we need to make it happen as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you very much for this panel discussion. Really interesting. I think it's up to them, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, if you would like to ask a question, don't be shy. Just raise your hand. We can put up some lights in the audience.
Oh, thank you.
And then you can raise your hand, and we will make sure that a mic will come. I see
we have Deborah and Chloe with the microphones, and they will come. Yes, I see somebody over there. Thank you.
Yes, hello. We see content providers like the New York Times, authors of best-selling books, suing OpenAI for basically crawling their content without authorization. Do you see that as an obstacle to innovation? How can we find the right compromise so that content creators are compensated, but without preventing AI from tapping into the content that it needs?
Sebastian.
Well, you already mentioned the choice that we can make. We can either try to use existing copyright legislation and one party suing the other, and then courts will have to try and wring some answer out of legislation that was created decades before anyone ever thought about something like generative AI. Or we can think about, well, what would be the right compromise? So what would be the right policy? What would be the right legislation to balance the rights of rights holders and also the interests of the AI communities and everyone who tries to build LLMs for all sorts of useful purposes. And I really lean towards the latter route because it is a new issue that requires policymaking, that requires a democratic discourse, that requires some heated arguments on how to resolve this. And it also requires mechanisms for implementation. Maybe we will need a resurrection of those associations that you had to pay a little bit of money to every time you bought a magnetic tape cassette 20 or 30 years ago, and that was then somehow distributed to all the rights holders. Maybe there are other mechanisms to do it, but I'd really lean towards solving it as a challenge for democratic discourse and policy making.
Okay, thank you, Sebastian.
Someone else who wants to?
Yeah.
Maybe one thing to add is we are trying via also other measures to get data of high quality and which is also according to regulation, not stealing anyone's data. So we are trying also to put measures to facilitate access to high quality data, sharing of data in a way which is legally correct as well.
And I think that also shows that there's also a technological side to it. So indeed, those large language models, at this moment in time, they actually very naively accessed all of this data. I think another example where Europe has been very strong in is the concept of data spaces, where we make sure that data is not centralized into one single entity, but that we do share data across different stakeholders. I think that could be one of the kind of technological solutions to it, where then the legislative and the business model behind of how you use that data could solve it. So the way that OpenAI did it right now, I don't think that is the answer going forward, and it will probably need a kind of a European gist to it as well.
I think there's also an interesting, in some sense, challenge here that if we want language models and so on that answers questions correctly, we also need to have access. So it could be that, oh, no, I cannot answer that question because I don't own the copyright to that answer. Then we also have to accept the fact that well, there will be things that we will not be able to answer. We will there will be a consequence for the factualness. So I'm also in line with this, that we have to find other solutions where we can find a reasonable compromise, because we want to have the highest quality in the end.
Okay, they agree. Perfect.
Someone else who has a question?
Other question. Oh, wow, I see. One, two.
Several.
Deborah, Chloe, where are you? I see three hands.
Raise your hand again.
Can you please raise your hand again? Okay.
Thank you. One of the worries that I hear when I talk to the general public about AI is that AI at one point will become this overarching, especially from a government perspective, overarching computer says no system. And it was already mentioned, you know, the human AI that we have to try to implement. And I bring to mind, it wasn't really AI, but it was an automated decision-making system in the Netherlands, which the tax authority there caused a lot of issues with grants which were revoked in Dutch, toeslagenschandaal. Anybody here from the Netherlands will hear about it. I think that's something, a scenario that nobody would really like to see in the future, which, without having too much regulation in place, because that is indeed something that we have to avoid. Think of the Cookie Act, which everybody hates because it doesn't solve anything, it just causes a lot of problems. Exactly. How do you feel that we should tackle that problem, or that challenge, rather?
Oh, interesting.
But isn't it kind of, as far as I know, I mean, a computer cannot have a legal responsibility. There will always be a person or a kind of other entity that needs to have the legal responsibility. So to me, I'm not a lawyer, so I cannot judge, but from my point of view, I think it's pretty clear. But what I think is, sometimes I get the question that, oh, should we replace the CEO of a company with an AI? And I usually say no, because that is probably the most important role, to actually make the judgment, but also to what are the kind of questions you want to ask. So I think we definitely should maintain and keep their human responsibility and to make these decisions. We shouldn't, and I don't think we can delegate it to the AI.
I think it's sort of something we try to promote. It's using AI to augment people and make them stronger, finally, not alienate them, but really reinforce them using systems. We don't want system to completely replace people, except in some cases. For instance, we had project with robot going in very dangerous situation. There you don't want to send a human, you want to send a robot instead. But for most of the situation where a human use an AI system, we are promoting a way which augment human and help human in having access to more information that the person can process in its own life. I mean, a doctor will never be able to see in his life, in her life, billions of image, while the system can do it and can maybe highlight some facts in a given image and say, okay, based on all what I've seen, this is my understanding, and give this as an input to the final user who then takes the decision.
So I think it touches a bit on something we already talked about in the panel. It has both a regulatory and a societal aspect to it. I think from the regulation perspective, you do have the AI Act, and it clearly says that a higher risk AI requires human oversight in these consequences. So I think you'll have this by definition already, but it also touches upon the societal aspects we talked about. It's extremely important that we understand what AI can do, but definitely what it cannot do. I think those challenges you had in the Netherlands is not because the technology of AI wasn't good or not good enough. It was because there was too much trust on what a computer could actually do. And I think that's very important going forward. That's just random replacement of a human by an AI technology. It's not something that is going to be possible, and it's not something that is actually desired, in my opinion, either.
Okay.
Someone else who wants to ask a question?
There's other hands, yes.
On the right-hand side.
Chloe is coming. Chloe?
Or
is that my turn now?
Deborah?
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned the project Taylor, which I think has provided a very sound basis for addressing the issues that you've been all talking about and we've all been thinking about. As a European project, it's going to come to an end. How can we best build on the basis that Taylor has provided for us?
Yes, yes, as you mentioned, the network. So this is one of these networks of excellence, and it's a project that ends at in end of August this year. And of course, we have built up a community. We have so I think there is a lot of things that we have done that can be taken further. So, for example, we have been very much involved in starting the European summer school on AI. But I think in overall, I mean. So, well, that was not really an answer. But anyway, the thing is that we have built up this. I think there's a lot of people that want to continue. There is also a lot of results. So, for example, we have developed a handbook of trustworthy AI, where we have tried to capture what we have learned, but also gathering what other people have learned. So I think that's something one can build on. But I think overall, it's the community and the researchers involved that is something to build on going forward.
And in addition, we have the AI on Demand platform, which is used by all the researchers. It's a platform, it's a community platform where people exchange data and exchange knowledge and results. So hopefully that will also be a vehicle to transmit the information to the future generations.
Okay, thank you.
Someone else?
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. Deborah is coming with the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you for all the interesting information that you provide us. I want to bring to the discussion the fact of certification, especially when you need to have the final applications in the industry. You need to be certified. If I'm using ChatGPT in my laptop, sending emails to my boss, I don't need a certified program. But when I'm using AI, for example, as a tool for a health application to check from the images whether somebody has cancer or not, to provide a very oversimplified example, then this new tool needs to be certified in a way. Now, in the US, we have Google and Meta who are having the money and the resources and the people to pass that certification process. In Europe, we don't seem to have a champion, a big company like that, to be able to provide that. How can we what kind of tools do you have in mind, especially from the Commission side, to assist companies and research centers who are creating the technology and then want to have the spin-offs to follow that up in order to make that process easy and cheap and quick?
Yeah. So first, the standardization activity is very important for that. But in addition, we have a number of supported action to help the startups and the SME, especially those one who needs financial support to go to that process, or technical support. And the AI Act is also designed to facilitate, make it as easy as possible, but we have also support measure. I mentioned some that will start in Digital Europe program to provide tools to measure, to help them going through that process in a way which is as easy and simple as possible for them. So for sure, we are also offering a number of action. The European Digital Innovation Hubs is also another instrument that can be used to support the startup. So in two or different activities, we are going to look into the specific cases, and in each of them, see how we can help. In the TEFs as well, the sectorial TEF, there will also be some activities. They do not certify themselves; they are not certifying body, but they will already help and prepare the ground for those startups. So we will see a bit how it evolves, but we have already in the pipeline a number of activities that will support that.
Okay, thank you for your answer, Cecile. There was some, yes, one hand over there.
Thank you. Thank you for this very lively discussion. Sorry for my voice, I'm still recovering from a cold. I don't want to get too philosophical, but I think we also need to answer to ourselves the question, in what world or in what Europe do we want to live in? Looking at all the big techs influencing our lives, Google, Meta, they have been named here, they are all coming from the US, where the philosophy is, let's test the technology on the people. I think Europe is the other way around. Let's first make sure people are not harmed before we throw technology at them. And I think the AI Act is a very good example of such a regulation that we need. But we also need to make sure that the international players are playing to the same rules when they want to make business in Europe. And also when we go outside of Europe and want to be global leadership in AI in some parts, we need to make sure that we promote this benefit broadly to the outside world, to the non-Europeans. Why it's good to use this European technology? Because it's safe. It doesn't harm your life. It doesn't kill children, as Cécile said before. So I think we need to be proud of that, and we need to go out a bit more towards that. I would like to hear what your thoughts are on that. Thank you.
There are a number of activities internationally to promote this human-centric value in different type of fora, but definitely we want to promote this approach. And yeah, one thing is also about communication and being proud of what we do. This is something Europe is not especially strong at, but this is something we need to promote. But I think once we will have also demonstrated that in Europe we can provide good tools and we can also serve the need of European, we will have a stronger, let's say, reason to be able to communicate and say, look how it works and how we can really have the human-centric approach we want and serving people rather than exploiting them. So let's hope we can really make it materialize beyond the discussion we have in promoting this type of approach.
I mean, it really goes back to the earlier point. Which playing field do we want to compete on? Do we want to compete on the playing field of who's able to extract the maximum amount of data from citizens? Or do we want to play on the playing field or compete on the playing field of, well, what can we do that's the most beneficial? What can we do with the least amount of data? And I think a lot of the discussion, and I actually encourage the kind of, as you say, put it the philosophical viewpoint, that discussion of what actually do we want to compete on, or even more broadly, what do we want the digital space to look like in 5 or 10 years from now? We need to get away from just reacting to dangers that we see or opportunities that we see and have that much broader and longer term discussion, what should the digital space be like? And I mean, I was born in the 1970s, and that was a time when organizations like the Club of Rome started raising the alarm that we are messing up our physical environment through resource depletion and through pollution. And over many, many years, people started coming around and reacting to it from a policy perspective. We're now at a similar stage for our digital environment. We have to ask ourselves, well, how do we deal with generative AI being able to pollute the digital space? How do we deal with the fact that the ease of generating content depletes our human attention span as the finite resource? And these are answers that I think really need to be addressed in the discussions that now come after the AI Act, and we have now the mind space to do that again.
Okay, just now, yes, okay.
Sorry, but I fully agree with that. I think I already mentioned it. So the big technology players are not in Europe. That's true. And so yes, we don't have this first mover advantage. But I think going forward in 5, 10, 15 years from now, I think what is going to be important is how we all as citizens actually react on what is the level that we want an AI system to be. And there I'm pretty positive about it in the sense that I'm pretty sure that as more and more awareness grows about what AI can do, that we will also hold this technology and the corresponding solutions to a certain standards, and that we will say to certain technology players, no, we do not want your product because it does not adhere to our moral standards in that sense. I think there Europe is really paving the way going forward.
Okay. Thank you very much. We only have a few seconds, a few minutes left. I want to do a last question. Yes, what does the audience take away from this conversation, from this breakout session? If you can do that in a couple of seconds, 1 minute, maybe the takeaway. Cécile.
Let's make it happen together in Europe.
Okay, good.
For me, we're at a fundamental choice. We really need to invest in this concentration of AI research going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to me, it's very much this. We have to invest as much in innovation as we invest in regulation. And if we manage to make this push in the same direction, we can do great things.
Scale up and speed up.
Yes, that too.
And let's have the confidence to go a European path.
Okay, thank you very much. Give them a round of applause.
Yes.
So, and that concludes this breakout session on AI. We look forward to welcome you again in this room for the closing session, and that is at 4:45 p.m.
Now we have another breakout session coming up. It will start in about 10 minutes. And please refer to the closing session, and the upcoming breakout sessions are on your access ticket. And people who have registered for the Data Governance in Science and Innovation session, they can stay in this room, and the other sessions will take place in the studio, the aquarium, and the cinema.
Enjoy the session.
Bye-bye.
Zentohal.